It's hard to believe Chopin's illustrious career as a composer began with these two notes. This off-kilter march paves the way for an ascending theme that could have been written by any number of European composer-pianists of the 1820s. But then in bar 30, there comes a descending chromatic progression, and yes, that's our temperamental Chopin. Chopin composed his Opus 1 at the age of 15, and in many ways, it sounds like the student work that it is, drawing on formulas of phrasing and thematic development. But it's also bursting at the seams. This rondo in C minor is mercurial and full of aura, a bold bit of musical experimentation put forward by Warsaw's most precocious young improviser, ready to prove himself as a composer-pianist. Chopin debuted the work in June of 1825 in the main hall of the Warsaw Conservatory, playing, of all things, a hybrid piano organ called an Aiolo Pantaleone, a word I hope to never have to say again. While the instrument would be swept into the dustbin of history, the young man at its helm would experience the opposite trajectory. From Opus 1 to Opus 65 and several unpublished works in between, Chopin would leave behind a legacy that ranks him among the greatest composers in history, despite writing almost exclusively for the piano. And it is this body of music that has been the focus of this series. In 16 episodes over 2 seasons, spanning 30 hours and featuring more than 24 of the world's leading Chopin pianists and scholars, the Chopin Podcast is a multimedia encyclopedia of the greatest body of piano music ever composed. For this reason, I've assembled a team to build a resource to help you navigate the podcast and have this vast body of musical knowledge at your fingertips. Introducing the Chopin Podcast Opus Index, a mobile-friendly web app where you can look up any one of Chopin's pieces and instantly be delivered to time-stamped passages from podcast episodes where Garrick Ohlsson and other guests break down the music. The Chopin Podcast Opus Index is a vital reference tool for piano teachers and students, musicology and keyboard literature professors, curious music lovers, and aficionados alike. The Opus Index is also the ideal companion as you follow the International Chopin Competition in Warsaw. Say it's the first round, and a competitor is about to perform the lesser-known G major nocturne. Just click over to the Opus Index in your browser, open the nocturnes page, select Opus 37 number 2, and voila. There's the chairman of the jury walking through the piece in detail for you.
It's a duet. Of enchantment, and it's got this barcarolle-like bass. Let me just try to play a bit of it. I haven't played it in a long time, but let's see what remains.
Welcome to the Chopin Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Laude, and over the course of this series, we've taken a deep dive into the music of Frédéric Chopin, with episodes on each of Chopin's major compositional genres. And now we've reached the finish line here in Season 2, Episode 7, dedicated to some of the outlier pieces that fall outside of Chopin's more well-known genres. In this variety show, Garrick Ohlsson breaks down Chopin's youthful and experimental rondos. Jed Distler recommends recordings for a whole suite of singular and lesser-known works by Chopin. Then I'll be joined by 3 special guests making their first Chopin podcast appearance. Bronze medalist of the 2015 International Chopin Competition, Kate Liu, will react to her beloved performance of the Andante Spianato and Grand Polonaise from Warsaw. Grammy Award-winning pianist Emanuel Ax drops by to discuss Chopin's chamber music, composed in the earliest and latest periods of his musical life. And we'll finish with spokesperson of the Chopin Institute in Warsaw, Alek Laskowski, who tells the story of the origins of the International Chopin Competition a century ago. And finally, to cap things off, I visit Garrick's house one more time to ask him to reflect on this exhaustive survey of Chopin's works we've recorded for this podcast. You can listen to full episodes of the Chopin Podcast on podcasting platforms or watch segments from each episode on my YouTube channel. Just look up my name, Ben Laude. That's Benlaude. If you enjoy this series, you can support the Chopin Podcast simply by liking and commenting on this video and subscribing to this channel, leaving a 5-star rating and review on Apple or Spotify, or by joining my Patreon, where I've posted countless hours of bonus content with Chopin Podcast guests. You can also head over to chopinpodcast.com to check out the show's new line of merch. Chopin Podcast stickers, Chopin Podcast coffee mugs, and yes, Chopin Podcast t-shirts that will let everyone know you're both fashionable and cultured. This series is produced in partnership with the Chopin Foundation of the United States, presenters of the National Chopin Competition in Miami, Florida every 5 years. I was thrilled to host the live streams of the Miami competition this past January, and I'm honored to have been invited to Warsaw in October to serve as one of the hosts of the Chopin Talk studio shows that are broadcast live throughout the 2025 international competition on the Chopin Institute's YouTube channel. The honorary chairman of the U.S. Chopin Foundation is none other than competition jury chair Garrick Ohlsson, who's been with us every step of the way during this podcast series. Garrick is one of the few pianists to ever record Chopin's complete works, published by the Hyperion label. Many of the recordings heard during this series are taken from that set. Digital downloads of the complete cycle are available for purchase on Hyperion's website. And of course, to complete that recording project, Garrick had to learn the Rondo in C minor, Chopin's first ever published work.
It shows you what an ingenious kid he was and how independent-minded. Because I will quote again the distinguished German music critic Joachim Kaiser at the Clavier Festival of Ruhr. He asked me to play a number of early works, and he lectured. And he was just talking about the very opener of the Rondo, which I won't give away immediately, but I'm telling you it's in 2/4. But where's the downbeat? If you didn't know it, it doesn't scream, although it's there, but you could also hear it, and of course we get the same thing in the first concerto, in a way. Where's the downbeat? Pop, pop, pop. Is it? Or is it? Well, it's both, of course. It's ambiguous. And that Rondo is a much more sophisticated version of this one, both in mood and what goes on it. But so he gives you this intro full of ambiguity already. And I remember that's when Kaiser said no Middle European composer at that point would have ever had the particular imagination. In other words, this had to come from the exotic parts of Europe, right? It was just, probably in a German conservatory, your teacher would say, no, you're not allowed to do that. And that's probably what Chopin's teacher told him too in Warsaw.
He was 15. So it's a kid writing this. So obviously, if you played just the first couple bars, no one would ever guess it's Chopin. But it's kind of what he does with it, and also the key. He explores keys,
And actually, speaking of harmony and rhythm, 5/1 usually is 5/1, 5/1. Here it's 5/1. Finally, cadence is there, above which there's a jolly melody which goes from there to there, which is far. So he's already got a lot of his young, brilliant style character, and before you know it, here we go. Who else? And then here we go, chromatic wandering. I mean, yeah, who else, really? before long, he is modulated to a second theme for the Rondo, which is in the faraway key E major. And it's a bit of parody of some kind of Italian bel canto of the period. Not a gorgeous melody, but a sort of flirtatious, semi-comedic. It gets passionate in G-sharp minor. It cadences in A-flat, goes back to C minor, and so on. Has a big episode in D-flat. Anyway, it's worth a look. I mean, not necessarily for pianists to play, but I would say it's not to be totally ignored.
Nor is the Opus 5, the Rondo.
Oh, no, yeah.
A la mazur, which I do hear. I have heard at the Chopin competition.
Absolutely. It's a light and flashy little piece, and it has mazurka elements. It also has, he immediately goes to the Lydian mode, modal music. He's in the Lydian mode. He's in F, which is Lydian key, which is very characteristic of a lot of Polish folk music, particularly that from the south, but also in the Warsaw area. The Lydian mode, the modal music was always there, available to all the great composers, but it sort of, I think, fell out of fashion. It was associated with a church, and then it was associated with maybe folk music. I don't know, but right in the second beat, he shows one of the basic mazurka traits is with either a melodic or a harmonic or a bass accent on the second beat. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Now, is that an upbeat? So he's already seducing us the way he did in the first rondo with what's going on here. And then once we hear that and that's just an intro, but it's wonderful, and it's pianissimo. There's no accent on that note. It's what our teachers used to call an accent of length. It's just he sits there too long. It's on purpose. It's to make you wonder, huh? So if you exaggerate it, it gets even weirder. What's he doing? Wrong note. And then the moment the bass begins to come in and dance, he already begins to show some of the mastery that he'll show in his early mazurkas of bass texture, harmony, because the mazurka is not ever just a second beat accent or a third beat accent. It's complicated networks of things that dance together and sing together. And this is a mazurka style thing. In a subsidiary part of the first theme group in bar 21 already, he goes to the minor Lydian, which gets more exotic even. And it doesn't have to be extraordinary because it happened and when it did, but that wasn't the kind of sound that normally happened in European classical music. Although it existed, obviously. Beethoven and Schubert did some pretty wild things, but this is it screams its ethnic origin and Chopin.
So really, Chopin's adventurous from an early age. His progression is not from, very polite, nice compositions towards realizing his genius. It's kind of like experimental and brilliant and in all kinds of ways. And he did have a flair for the flash.
Did he ever?
All
And
of
this
these
piece
early
is absolutely full of it. So this becomes a good display piece for a virtuoso pianist. It's flashy.
Mhm. Yeah.
And there's lots of it. There's a second theme, which is also a mazurka. I forget if Bruce Liu played it at this 21 competitions, but a number of the prize winners in 2015 played this.
The Opus 16 Rondo, also not often played. It's longer, more involved.
I heard Horowitz play it in 1974. I remember the date vividly because he gave a recital at the Metropolitan Opera in New York, which is far from common. I think he may have been the first pianist ever to play a recital there, at least at the big new house. And he included this piece, and I had never read it or heard it. And it's also, by the way, very flashy, and he did not underplay it. He did not mitigate the coy charm that he was the master of, or Chopin for that matter. And put it this way, he laid the stage makeup on really thick, and he sold it. It was a fantastic thing.
Is this the episode where I get a little Horowitz anecdote from Garrick? It might need to be.
Is there a Horowitz anecdote?
You played for him, didn't you?
I met him. Yeah, I joke that in 1976, we happened to have the same manager in New York, Harold Shaw. And I always used to joke that, Horowitz was lucky that he came to my manager. He might not have had a career without such a good manager. But in any case, Mr. Horowitz could be managed by anybody he wanted. Of course, he was the most legendary pianist of the middle of the 20th century. And I met him at a party at Harold Shaw's, which Mr. Shaw was giving for him, and a lot of glitterati illuminati of New York were there. I mean, I forget who. Leonard Bernstein wasn't there, but Samuel Barber was, and John Corollia. I mean, it was kind of a who's who, both of performers and managements. It was a very fancy occasion. And I got introduced to Horowitz, who was very charming. And at one point, he sort of signaled for me to come down and talk to him because Shaw had said he likes to talk to young pianists, And so I got the signal that Mr. Horowitz would like to talk to me. So we sat down and had a rip-roaring conversation about our favorite pieces and composers and who we loved and who we didn't love and all that stuff. And he said, I mean, I'm not speaking ill of it. This is just true and very colorful. He just said to me very harshly, and so who is your lover among composers? And I said, Chopin. He said, good choice. Mine is Schumann, probably. So, okay, that's who our lovers are. And also I told him that I had played not so much Schumann, but the F sharp minor sonata. And he said, oh, that's too crazy for me. And then later I told him I played the Scriabin six sonatas. I won't touch that. That's evil. Because a lot of people from his time and before, including Scriabin, thought the Scriabin six was evil. But anyway, Horowitz playing this piece was stunning. I mean, he characterized it extremely, but it was wonderful. And of course, if you are going to be a pianist who eventually learns and records all of Chopin, you do play this. And I played this in public with great pleasure quite a few times. And it goes over. This is a hit. I mean, this is a hit piece. First of all, this is one of the relatively rare pieces of Chopin that has a large developed introduction called Introduzione, introduction in other words. It starts very mournfully in sort of a Slavic way, then it gets very tempestuous and very brilliant, and then kind of calms down and gets almost cute, and then when the theme comes in, it gets very cute. It's fun, and there's all sorts of, he varies it. And I mean, it's as coy and cute as anything he ever wrote. It's very flashy, brilliant triplets, if I can play them. Well, never mind. It's full of triplets. It goes all over the place. Anyway, he wanders semi-stormily through a lot of chromatic stuff, and in Rondo, it's like sort of A, B, A, C, A, D kind of material. So he has a developed second theme, which is in his double note style, which you'll later meet in the Barcarolle. Two singers. Over a really cute accompaniment, which sounds almost more Hawaiian to me than anything else. Anyway, it's really sweet. This is not the profound serious Chopin. Of course, this is champagne and giggles at a party.
Well, you don't pull this one out right after you finish the F minor ballade. I think that's for sure.
Not unless you're completely,
not on a program, unless you're
insensitive. So then after that theme finishes, there's a sort of brilliant coda, which you will notice sounds a bit like the first concerto. Then there's another stormy chromatic interlude, and then it settles back to theme A.
You're listening to a performance of the Introduction in Rondo Opus 16 from the 11th National Chopin Competition, given by Karina Sang, one of two lesser-known pieces she played in Miami, along with the Variations Brillantes Opus 12. The Miami competition was a huge hit, attracting over 300,000 YouTube views during the week-long event and sold-out final round concerts. It was my privilege to host the live streams on behalf of the Chopin Foundation and to interview so many of the talented competitors. Congratulations to all the prize winners, and especially to gold medalist William Yang and silver medalist Anthony Ratanov, who earned automatic admission to the live rounds of the International Chopin Competition. They'll be joined by two other competitors from the U.S. competition, semifinalists Victoria Wong and Antony Kleczek, to relive their prize-winning performances from the national competition and all the other great playing and fun conversations that took place in Miami. Make sure you're subscribed to the Chopin Foundation YouTube channel.
It does basically a large A-B, and then gets into a kind of coda. He wanders around a lot, and the coda is actually, I think, the best part of the piece. It's very charming. And then sort of dies down at the end, fades, and then ends with two loud chords. I mean, it just... So it's really nice, and I think people should play it more.
To explore Chopin's catalog of works in depth, check out the Chopin podcast Opus Index, a comprehensive multimedia reference tool featuring on-demand commentary and demonstrations for nearly every Chopin piece by Garrick Ohlsson and other guests in this series. Start exploring at index.chopinpodcast.com. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to my Patreon, where paying members have access to bonus scenes from my interviews with guests from across the series. And there, you'll also get a discount on the new line of Chopin podcast merch.